The following craft supply was the inspiration behind most of the DIYs in this video today. This item was purchased out of my local Dollar Tree in the Crafter Square section. This video runs lengthy, so be on the lookout and stay tuned for a continuation of more inspired DIYs by this product. I hope you enjoy. So I grabbed one of these do-it-yourself wall decor hangings from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be leveling it up a little bit. So for starters, I'm going to begin by removing that jute twine, and I'm just going to slide it right through the holes because it has a little plastic doohickey on it, kind of like a shoelace. And then the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to be hitting those little slats in between those pallets with some black paint, because no matter what I cover it with in the front, they're still going to be visibly noticeable. So I'm going to paint those individual slats in between. Now that I've given those individual slats some coverage with the black paint, I'm going to go ahead and paint the remainder of those planks with the black paint, and I'm going to go ahead and give every other plank a coat of that black paint. So the top one is going to be black, and then I'm going to skip a plank, and then the next one is going to be black as well. So to give it a finished look, I went ahead and I painted the entire back side black. And then in the front, like I said, I only painted 2 planks. So now to complete this project out, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adhering some of this cork sheet, and I picked up this cork sheet from the Dollar Tree and I traced out the planks onto the cork sheet, and I'm just simply going to cut it out and adhere it to my decor plaque, and calling this a finished project. Okay, so now that you have that cork sheet all cut out and ready to go, we're simply just going to peel that backing off to apply it to our wall decor. And if you're not quite sure of the placement, don't press it down firmly yet, because you do have some wiggle room. You can adjust this by peeling it up and putting it back on. Not so much so to where you're going to lose the adhesive backing, but you know, at the end of the day, you want your piece to look like it's at least store-bought. So you do have some wiggle room, and I don't know if it's just me and my OCD, but I kind of have to have it perfectly straight. So now all that's left to finish out this project is to simply reattach that jute hanger that it originally came with by simply threading it through those holes and hanging it back on. And you know, this doesn't need no glue required, no knotting or anything, because it has those little plastic sleeves on it. So I just have to insert it right back into those holes. And would you look at how stinking cute this sign came out, guys? I can't believe how that cork sheet just elevated this project and took it up so many levels. And this project took no time at all. Okay, so for this next level up project, I have these 2 little shelf sitters from the Dollar Tree, and they're cute enough on their own, but they just have a ton of glitter that I'm just not feeling. So I'm gonna go and try to use this little Cricut spatula that I have and try to get that paper up in one piece without having to sand or mess with that glitter, because yeah, I don't want to have a glitter bomb all over the place. So hopefully I can succeed at removing this entire paper so that I can move on. Ta-da! I was able to get it off pretty much in one piece, and now I'm just going to do the same thing to the next little shelf sitter, and then we can move on to the next step. So after successfully removing that paper from both of my shelf sitters, I'm going to set them off to the side, but I'm not going to discard them because I'll be showing you later on in the video what I'm going to be doing with them. And then I went and I gave both of my shelf sitters a light sanding. And so now you can't even tell which side is the front or which side is the back, which is a good thing. And so next up, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to hit the red one with a coat of black paint just along the trim, and then the second shelf sitter I'm going to give it a full coverage of white paint. And here is my reasoning behind not discarding that paper and putting it to the side, because I'm actually going to be repurposing it as a template, and I'm going to be using it to cut out the shape of that heart. And so instead of having to trace and all of that stuff, I'm just going to cut out the shape, and I just adhered it with a little bit of Scotch tape. And so now I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. And this just worked out perfectly as a stencil. So now I have my heart all perfectly cut out and ready to adhere to my little sign. Now that we got our heart shape all nice and cut out, we could adhere it to our little plaque. But I also wanted to show you that I did go ahead and give that other one a complete full coverage of white paint just on the one side. So now to make it a cohesive set, I went and I cut out some strips of that same corkboard adhesive sheet so that I can edge it around the sides like that. I'm going to frame it in to make it a cohesive set with the other one. So here's what I got going on now that I adhered that cork sheet to the black plaque, and I also went ahead and did the trimming on the white plaque. So now I have my little dashing duo here. And a quick little tip and hack is that if you hit the sides with a little Dollar Tree sanding sponge or any sheet of sandpaper, you'll get yourself a nice smooth finish. So now I went ahead and cut out these two vinyl decal images off using my Cricut cutting machine. And so I just cut out these two fonts. One says I love you and the other one says love you more. And we have this little quirky thing in my family, my kids and my sister and I, whenever we talk or text on the phone, one says I love you and the other one says I love you more. I know, a bunch of cornballs, right? But I decided to just integrate that into my little decor here by just using those little sayings. So now what I'm doing here is I'm peeling off that transfer tape, and I'm just going to align my little decal on my little plaque, and I'm going by the little dip and the V in the heart since I'm not doing any precise measurements, and then I'm going to give it a little scrapey scrape, and that's it. So this next one is going to be trial and error, guys. Honestly, I have no clue whether or not vinyl sticks to cork. This is going to be my first attempt at adhering any kind of vinyl to this cork sheet. So there's only one way to find out, right? So I'm trying to align it to the best of my ability here. You know me, I don't do precise measurements, and that looks about right. Now for the moment of truth to find out whether or not vinyl adheres to that cork sheet, we're going to take a sneak preview by peeling up the corner to see if it's sticking. So far so good. Yes, it looks like it wants to stick. So I'm going to keep peeling up. Oops, I got a little carried away and ahead of myself here. You didn't see that though. I'm just going to push it right back down. Once again, we've leveled up another project, and I am just over the top about how these little shelf sitters came out. I am loving them, and this is an item that can be used from Valentine and beyond because nothing about them say Valentine on them. And this is a saying that I use all year long, and they're so cute. They're very versatile. You can pop them in a your tray, use them as bookends, or sit them on a shelf. Either way that you decide to display them, they are stinking adorable, and I'm glad I was able to share them. Picked up a few of these frame wall signs from Target, and they were originally $3 but got clearance down to 90 cents after the Christmas holidays, so I picked up quite a few. And I'm going to be hitting just the frame alone with some black paint, and then I'm going to embellish the middle. So I'm just going to continue to go around the frame with that black paint. And here's a close-up look at that frame now that it's had a chance to dry. And so now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking a piece of project board that I purchased at the Dollar Tree. And this is just one of those trifold project boards that you can purchase at the stationery section at Dollar Tree. And I traced out the dimensions of my sign on the back, and I'm just going to trim it down to size to insert it into my decor sign. And you don't have to have this project board per se. You can use any piece of cardboard as long as it meets the dimension requirements. So now I'm just going to continue to trim it down to size, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now that I got that insert all nice and cut out, it's time for the moment of truth to see if my measurements were spot on and if it fits inside my decor frame. And guys, would you look at this? It is a perfect fit. I'm usually awful when it comes to measurements. I'm never spot on like this. This is such a great fit that I don't even need to tack it down with any glue or anything. I don't feel that it's necessary. And because I like to change my decor out seasonally, this works great for me. So I have some of these leftover wooden heart shapes from last year, and you can tell they're from last year because they come in a pack of 5, and now I believe they come in packs of 8 or 9. And so these are two different variations. One has the arrow running through it and the other one are plain, and I opted to go for the plain one simply because of, fitting and size. So I decided that the magic number was 3, and I'm going to be placing 3 of these heart shapes down onto my sign. But before doing so, surprise, surprise, I have a theme going on here. So to make it cohesive with the rest of my projects, I'm going to be using some of this corkboard adhesive. After cutting those heart shapes, it's now time to apply them to the little wooden decor plaque. And to do so, I'm simply going to be peeling off that backing and applying them as such. And it's really just that easy and simple, guys. It's just a no-brainer, simple peel and stick procedure. And it couldn't be more simplified, and it can't get any easier than this. So here's a look at my heart shapes now that I applied the cork sheet to them. And so now it's time to embellish my little sign. And to do so, I'm simply just going to be tacking them down. And my preferred choice of glue is this super glue wood glue from the Dollar Tree. And simply because I'll have a little more wiggle room than if I use hot glue on that cardboard backing. And so I'm just going to trace out the shape of the heart along the edging and a little bit in the middle, and I'm going to eyeball it and try to center it to the best of my ability, and then I'm going to follow suit and do the same steps for the next 2 hearts as well. And here's a look at the finished project. I'm loving the simplicity of it all because this project will take you through Valentine and beyond, because it's just a simple wall decor with some hearts that you can display in your home all year long. And I love that the common denominator is that cork sheet from the Dollar Tree that ties all my projects in cohesively. For this project, I had to purchase 2 packs of these terracotta little planters because they come in packs of 3, but I actually needed 4 for this project, so that's why I had to get 2. And for starters, I'm going to begin by removing the shrink wrap and then hitting it with a coat of black paint from the lip down. Now that I've removed the packaging, I'm simply going to take 2 of those extra planters and set them to the side because I'm only going to be needing 4 for this project. And then I'm going to come in with some of this black chalk paint, and I'm going to hit it with a coat just from that lip portion down. I'm not going to be painting the top, and I'm going to do the same thing to all 4 of my planters. So here's a look at those planters now that I've given them a coat of that black chalk paint and they've had a chance to dry. So now I'm ready to move on. And if you haven't already guessed, I went ahead and I cut out some strips of that same corkboard adhesive sheet. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adhering them to that lip that we left unfinished. And so I'm simply just going to be tacking that corkboard adhesive to the top portion of my little planter pots to tie it in to the rest of my decor. From there, I have this pack of picks from the Dollar Tree, and it comes in a pack of 8 with some hearts, and clearly I'm just going to be using the word love, but these are glitter bombs, guys. And so to solve that issue, I'm simply going to be hitting them with a coat of that same black chalk paint that I've been using throughout this video so that it can tie into the rest of my decor. So because chalk paint is so thick, which is why it's my preferred choice, I'm probably going to be able to get away with just one coat, which is the case for most of my projects using this kind of paint. And so what I'm aiming for is to contain all of that glitter and to give it as much coverage as possible. So I'm going to be doing the same for all 4 of my letters. So through the magic of YouTube, after allowing my picks some dry time, I went ahead and off camera, I cut down some pieces of pool noodle to insert inside my planters because I ran out of floral foam. And hey, you got to improvise, right? Do what you got to do. And so I have some of this here Spanish moss also from the Dollar Tree. I just have it in a Ziploc because this stuff is so messy. I hate dealing with this. But anyway, nonetheless, I'm going to be taking some of the Spanish moss just to cover up that pool noodle. And I'm going to put some inside each one of these planters and calling it a finished project. And here's a look at the final results of my little love project now that I added all of that Spanish moss into all of the planters. That's it. That's all she wrote. And I could now call this a finished project, and it ties in so well to the rest of my decor. So I have this little decor box from the Dollar Tree with this farmhouse tractor on it that I was never really crazy about, but I'm loving the fact that the frame is already black, so I don't really have to do much to it. So to begin with, I'm going to start off by removing that tractor, and to do so, I'm just going to take my little L ruler and I'm going to score it with my razor blade, my little box cutter, and I'm just going to continue scoring on the front, and then I'll flip it around to the back and do the same until it snaps off evenly in one piece. After scoring both sides, I'm able to wiggle it back and forth until it comes free of that little decor box, and I got it off. And so now I'm just going to go over it with my Dollar Tree sanding sponge to smooth out any rough edges. So here's what I got going on after giving it a nice sanding with my little Dollar Tree sanding sponge and getting it all nice and smooth. And now it looks like it came like that. You would never know that it had that tractor on top. So now to finish out this project, you guessed it, I have another piece of that cork adhesive sheet, and I'm just going to peel off that adhesive backing and tack it right down into the center of my decor box, and then move on to embellishing it and calling it a finished project. Now to embellish my little project, I'm simply going to pull off one of these heart buds from this little bouquet that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to tack it right down to the center of my decor box. And to do so, I'm simply going to be using some of this Dollar Tree super glue adhesive, and I'm just going to add a generous amount to that little heart and tack it down to the center of my decor box. And that's all she wrote. I love the simplicity of this project. This project took no time at all, less than 5 minutes, guys, because there was no painting or anything involved, so I didn't have to wait for any drying time. And I'm just loving the outcome. I love my little heartbeat in a box. So here's the final reveal of this project, my little 3D heartbeat in a box. It's all put together and dried and ready to display alongside the rest of my decor, and I'm glad I was able to share this simple and easy project with you. So I've been holding on to these little wooden pallets for quite some time now, and I didn't really know what to do with them, and then it suddenly hit me. So I'm going to prepare my little pallets first by taking off the tags from each one, and then I'm going to be hitting them with a coat of paint in preparation for this quick little simple Valentine DIY. So there's no rhyme or reason to this DIY. This one is going to go by pretty quickly. It's pretty simple, basic steps here. It's not science. And I'm just going to try to give it a complete coverage with that black chalk paint and try to go as heavy-handedly as possible because I'm going to want to try to get in between all those little nooks and crannies, in between those slats, and give it full coverage on both sides. And I'm going to repeat the process on all four of these little wooden pallets. So brace yourself for the simplicity of this DIY. So here's a look at those little pallets now that I've given them all each a complete coverage of that paint, and I got in between all of those nooks and crannies, and they're all nice and dry. So now what's next is I have this little pouch of Scrabble tiles that I purchased last year from the Target dollar spot, and I just took 4 little letters to spell out the word love, and I'm simply just going to be adhering a letter to each one of my palettes and calling it a finished project. Once again, I'm busting out my wood glue to attach those tiles to each of the palettes, and I'm simply just going to put a dollop in each corner of my tile and one in the center, and then I'm going to be adhering it to the right hand corner of each of those palettes, and I'm going to firmly press it into place for a few seconds. And no lies were told when I suggested you brace yourself for the simplicity of this project. That's it. In a nutshell, this DIY is complete. I'm simply lining up the tiles in a row to spell out the word love. And this project is dual purpose because it can serve as decor as well as functional purpose as coasters. Should you use them as coasters, you're going to want to seal them. So from the Dollar Tree, you're going to want to grab yourself 2 of these little wooden crates from the Crafter's Square section. And these are the ones that have the separation because there are 2 different kinds. And I'm going to begin by removing that awful sticker from the bottom in preparation for getting my little crates ready for this DIY. So to tie this project into the rest of my decor, I'm going to be giving it complete coverage. I'm going to paint it with this black chalk paint on the inside as well as the outside and give it full coverage all the way around. So through the magic of YouTube, here's what I got going on now that my crates are completely painted and dried. And if you're wondering why I skipped the slate, is because, surprise, surprise, again, I have these little strips of that corkboard adhesive, and I'm going to be adhering 1 strip to the front of each and the back as well of each little crate. And to do so, you've already seen this a dozen times throughout this entire video. I don't even have to show you, but I'm just going to peel off that adhesive backing and attach it right to those crates. So here's a look at what we got going on now that I adhered that cork sheet to those little slats. And so now what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to attach both of my crates together using some of that super glue, wood glue from the Dollar Tree. And now here I'm adding a nice amount of that super glue, wood glue to my little crates. And I'm not going to be stingy because this is going to take some drying time. And I'm just going to attach my 2 little crates together and clamp them down with some little clips that I also got from Crafter's Square. And then I'm just going to sit them to the side to dry. After allowing my crates some dry time, I'm now ready to remove those clips, and so now I have a complete unit. They're stuck together, and now I can decorate them, and I plan to add some greenery inside. And the beauty of this little decor piece is that it can be used all year round, as most of the projects here in this video. So for another really quick and easy craft, I have some of these chalkboard tags from Crafter Square, and then I have a few spools of twine. I have some black and white yarn as well as some jute twine, and so I'm just going to be stringing them around these chalkboard tags. So to begin, I'm simply just going to be threading that yarn through the hole on my little tag and then tying it off in a knot, and that's going to be my starting point. Just as simple as that, no gluing, no nothing. So to secure that yarn in place, I'm going to double knot it and tie it off and then cut off the excess of that yarn. And from there, I'm just going to simply go to town and start wrapping that yarn around my tag. And this, no rhyme or reason, I'm simply just going to wrap and wrap to my little heart's content. Every now and again, I'm going to switch gears and go in the opposite direction until I fill the heart completely with yarn or twine and you're no longer able to see the chalkboard tag. So there's absolutely no skills required. You guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm simply just wrapping that string around that heart and switching up directions every now and again. And you guys can see that I've got the heart pretty full and I'm pretty much almost to the end. There's not that much of the chalkboard showing. And once I have that heart completely full, all I have to do is knot it off in the back. So now that I have that heart completely wrapped to my liking, I'm simply knotting it off and tucking that twine right underneath so that it's not visible, and that's it. I'm showing them here in a grouping of multiple colors. I have them tucked away inside this little heart-shaped dish, and I'm just loving the turnout, guys. No one would ever know that these little hearts were made from Dollar Tree chalkboard tags, and this project was so fun to make, and the payout is awesome. I hope I inspire you to at least give it a shot and try them yourself.